Hi, hello everybody. This is Elvira Kalmár, and my friend this week who is joining us to the HR Fest online conversation is Peter Turgoose. Peter, we're doing this series about staying adaptive in very changing times, and how do we do that on HR, especially in these times when really everything is changing, even every regulation is changing from every day to the other. And we see that lots of HR teams are working overtime, sort of burning themselves out. So the aim of our series is to talk about how do we stay adaptive, how do we change what we are doing, and at the same time save ourselves and save our teams. And you came to my mind to kind of having the series, the next conversation, because you are a well-experienced HR person. You've been working for British Telecom as head of the OD. You work for Royal Mail as an HR director. So you've seen it from inside. You've seen it from the HR perspective. But I also know, and this is how we know each other, that you're also working on the field of organization design. So you've probably seen it from the external point of view also, when teams have to rethink what they are doing and how they are doing it. So super nice of joining me in this conversation. And maybe you already have some examples in your head that you would like to share, some good stories that pops up in your mind about this topic.
Yeah, it's a broad topic to break into, and you know, I've seen from the outside in this time round that during this pandemic, but during this crisis, whatever you want to call it, you know, HR has been called upon to do some extraordinary things and to do work that perhaps it wouldn't normally do. And it was interesting to hear you saying that that you know, they're working overtime, they're working long hours. But I think it's also interesting to note that in doing that, they've also stopped doing some of the things that they normally do. I have had the advantage of listening to some of your other speakers, and I thought it was interesting. Paul Toltimsky made the point about, you know, HR is no longer able to walk the corridors, and then it's no longer able to really, using Stelios's term, it's not really able to sense what's going on in the organisation because it's got wrapped into a virtual world where it's trying to and doing a great job of making the organisation or allowing the organisation to continue to operate the way it wants to operate. But I think what that does for me, and you know, it's a thought I've had about HR for a while, having worked in it and then thought about organisation design. There's a little bit, I think, of HR has got trapped and become a victim to some extent of its own success. You know, there's a term that was, I can't remember the academic name now that cited it, but talked about normative isomorphism, which basically means that HR is driven by what the profession says it ought to do. And lots of HR teams become the same. And I think we've reached a point in you know, the development of what I think of as the enablers of the organisation, HR being one of them, where the past is probably no longer a great predictor of the future because things are changing so fast. So the thought, and this isn't a fully formed thought, but it has influenced some of the design work I've done with HR teams across Europe over the last couple of years, is we've got to stop thinking about HR as a function. Because the moment you think about HR as a function, you put a boundary around it. And I encourage people more and more to think about HR as work and what is the end-to-end HR work. Because the HR work is about ensuring that people have got the right environment, you know, both physical and you know, a psychologically safe work environment to work in. They've got the skills and capabilities they need, and that their well-being is being looked after. Now, that is all HR work, but the question it poses is who does that work? So is that work all part of the functions, the work the function has to do? Or is there more and more of this work, and particularly as we go more and more virtual, more and more of what we think of as HR work goes into the job of the line manager and the line leader, because they're the ones who are much closer now with the day-to-day contact with employees. they're the ones who are responsible and accountable for the well-being of those employees. And HR is, the HR work around providing the enablers for them to do that gets less and less if the line leader takes on more and more, and they're in a much greater position to take on more. So, there's a question forming in my mind around what the role of the HR function is going forward, if we think about HR work, in its broadest sense.
And I really like, you told me you might be a little bit controversial, and I like that, because that is actually what kind of stretches our mind and the way to think about things. And while I'm listening to you, it kind of resonates with me or my thoughts, because I think for years and decades, and especially in this Central European part of the world where I'm sitting, we've been fighting very hard for the profession to be acknowledged, for the function to be respected. And it is still between one of the least respected areas if you look into studies together with internal IT. And this is something that really changed due to the pandemic. And suddenly the respect towards HR and internal IT, actually, that was the really enabling function to make it possible for most of the people to work from home, changed this. And on the other hand, as you're saying, our own assumptions about our own profession and our own purpose, while we HR people are there in a company, should be challenged also with this change. And I can very much kind of relate to that, because what I see with my ex-colleagues or clients I'm working with is that, somehow there is this, okay, but how are we going to do the same things we used to do? So the classic HR functions in this new environment, in this new context. This far, every HR team has got already, and you see superb way of adapting to it and super ways of using digitalization. Suddenly that was kind of just a dream for years. But where you are stretching our thinking with your thoughts is that really to rethink, and what is our function? What is our purpose? And what is, it's not even about but kind of about the human focus in the company. What is done by HR people and what is done by others? And if it's done by others, is there a role for HR in that? So it's not a black and white 1-0 kind of answer, but probably it's shifting also. If, I don't know, if we are mentoring or career consulting employees in a company, or if we are supporting our leaders to be able to do that better with the team members they are working with, for example. But I guess this could go even a lot further.
I think it does go a lot further, and I think it was interesting you say about whether you talk about the respect that the function gets, or how the function is seen by the operational line. So if the function is mainly drawn upon by the operational line, the first question you need to ask yourself is, what is the line's perception of HR as a function? And I think HR quite often gets seen as the expert that will provide a solution to a problem, but the line feels it has a voice in that solution. So we've all been in that position, haven't we, where the line shouts across to HR and says, I need you to recruit me an X, or I need you to train my people to do Y. And the line behaves in that way because that is their perception of the role of the HR function. It's there as a supplier in a customer-supplier relationship. And it's there to provide tactical responses and fairly immediate tactical responses. And the two big changes that HR needs to make, if it's going to get the respect that you're looking for, it has to move from tactical to strategic. So it needs to get a voice, at the strategic decision-making table, and influence the thinking and the strategy of the business going forwards. Because once you've got a voice in the strategy, you can get ahead of the game and you're no longer in a firefighting reactive mode, but the role of the function becomes much more of having ready the responses to the line leaders who say, I need X or I need Y. But it also needs a change in that relationship between HR as a function and the line leader, so that it becomes a conversation and a partnership where they are discussing what's needed and developing the best solution for that line leader. Whether it's about acquiring staff, whether it's about engaging them, whether it's about developing them, retaining them, or releasing them, and ensuring that their well-being is looked after and they've got a psychologically safe environment throughout that employee life cycle.
And
that's
I think,
the conversation.
Yeah, and I think it's a very important dimension that I can join. That one thing is to be able to sit at the strategic decisions and at the strategic table and be there a partner, which is a big challenge. But I also think there is an opportunity for that now, given the circumstances. So it's an opportunity for HR. But where I also see maybe that it's us, HR people, lacking is that, as you just said, that we move into this service provider kind of mode. So the business is asking for something and we will provide. They ask for a person, so we recruit it in 3 days, and then we take it away, and then we try to solve it, and then we're very angry at them that it's not possible in 3 days. And where I see that there is also a great potential and opportunity is to work in a partnership on an everyday transactional or solution level as well. So it's not HR hiring, it's the business hiring together with HR, or HR gives some sort of support, but it's a continuous partnership, continuous conversation, even setting the deadlines, even figuring out the content. So, and it's not just in recruitment. I guess in every topic, this is very true, that working together day by day and ensuring that all through the process we are working together. So that we also don't look at the business as the business gives us a ticket. We take it, we run away with it, we try to do something in the back office and then give back the solution and wait for the praise. But kind of to be there and communicate also and involve every day so that we are doing the process together.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to an element of what Stelio said when you were talking to him. Because Stelio talks quite rightly. If you want to be agile and you want to keep moving forward, you've got to be sensing. You've got to be sensing your environment. Now, historically, and this is where I'm going to get myself into a lot of trouble. Historically, HR has wasted lots of money on doing employee opinion surveys and this, that, and the other to try and create loads of data, which allegedly tells them what's going on in the organisation and what the gaps are. But actually, generally, it never gets used, and it probably doesn't actually tell you what the truth is. If you've got a good relationship with the line managers, then the sensing is a joint activity with you and the line, and you're doing it every day, and you're spotting the opportunities to do things better, to create a better environment for your employees, to improve performance, and then you're responding to it. It's a continuous, sense, opportunity, respond. I think the plan, do, check, act cycle, but that role of jointly sensing at operational level with the operational leaders, at strategic level with the main board leadership of the organization. Those are roles for HR, and that's work HR should be doing. And there's lots of work that HR is doing at the moment that would be much better done by a line leader, because they're the ones who are in the day-to-day contact with the employees, rather than having things thrown over the fence at them.
And it's a very agile way of working if we take from the agile the way that it actually involves the client, the customer into the process continuously, because the client, the customer's need might evolve also in the process. And maybe instead of just kind of creating daily stand-ups and squads on HR, that's probably one of the most important aspects of kind of building in the mechanisms that we continuously communicate and work together, even in every single process with our client, the business, the customer. So So we develop in the process also, but might have been just good assumptions in the beginning. Yeah. I mean, I also had one other thought about the things we do might have changed so much that we really have to rethink how we are doing them. Mm-hmm. And I had one example from my experience sitting on HR about learning and development, and especially the learning needs. And when I got the area and the people joined to my team, I also got the mission from my bosses that you'll have to kind of work on the processes, Elvira, because there's something there, we're not good enough. And I was trying to figure out why, what's wrong? It takes too long, we don't have the data, it's too complicated, people don't know, where's the money, do we still have money for education? And you know, the moment we started looking into it, what is it actually that we are doing under the name of training and education? It turned out that we were providing tailor-made solutions to every individual need in a company with 8,500 people. And it was built like that historically, when the learning and development unit used to be 120 people in this company. And now it was 6. And 6 people were still doing the same tailor-made individual solution. So this is what I'm thinking. And then it's not just about the processes. Then this is really rethinking strategically. What is it? What is that work that you're going to do and how you are going to do that? And I guess it's just one topic I picked out, and there might be many topics on HR that we historically do how we are doing it because we wanted to provide very good service at a given point. Mm-hmm. Times have changed, the numbers have changed, maybe the need has changed also.
Yeah, and you're right. I think you're dead right on both points. I think the numbers have changed, the needs have changed, but what hasn't changed is the mindset of the relationship between the line and HR. Because you describe, if I look at it, at a helicopter level, you're describing a situation where HR sees itself as a supplier that can't say no, and the line sees themselves as a customer that is able to demand whatever it is they think they want. And once you've got that, your work spirals out of control and your costs spiral out of control. And actually, the business is getting no value out of all the work that the HR function is doing. And that's why I get back to my hobby horse, really, of you need to look at the end-to-end work that's needed to manage the human resources and have a very serious strategic conversation about what's the relationship between the work we put into a function we call HR and all the other HR work that's done by the line leaders. Because in my experience, if you really sit down and look at the total end-to-end HR work, about 50 to 60% of it is already done by line leaders, whether they recognize it or not. And HR gets left with the cruddy bits. And you need to reevaluate what gets done in the function and how it gets done and what that relationship is.
And that's maybe a wonderful kind of closing thought or closing sentence for this short conversation, Peter, because I mean, what I'm really taking away with myself is instead of focusing on what HR does and what business does and how do we satisfy the business needs, we're actually talking about how do we sit together and figure out together what is needed and kind of do it continuously together in the process, in the progress, all through the employee journey.
Correct.
In these given circumstances we are at.
Yeah. Well, I think this is my clothing thought. I think the given circumstances have raised the profile of HR and given HR a once in a lifetime opportunity to start to have that conversation about how can we continue to do the best we can for you as a line leader and our business as a whole, because we've proved that we can react and we can respond, but we can't carry on working like this.
Wow. Thank you very much, Peter, for that.
It's a pleasure. Joy to speak to you, Elvira.
So you heard Elvira Kalmár and Peter Turgoose for HR Fest Online. Thank you very much.